The film begins with Jill, who works as a security guard at a facility. She steals expired medications and delivers them to Greg, who pays her money and then sells the drugs to people working at a car repair shop. Later, Jill goes to her children's grandmother, Doris, to pick up her daughter Matilda and her son Noah, since she is responsible for their custody until her children come to take them back. They get into the car to spend the day together, but while Jill is driving, the power suddenly cuts out, not only from her car but from all the cars on the road. She loses control until she finally manages to stop, but another car crashes into hers, causing the vehicle to flip into a lake. They manage to get out of the car with difficulty. Jill and Noah escape and start searching for Matilda. A police officer is trying to save Matilda from drowning, and she eventually regains consciousness. He tells them she had been unconscious and explains that the power has gone out everywhere around them. Even his radio stopped working, and he can't call an ambulance. They head to the nearest hospital because Jill has a head wound. At the hospital, they find it packed with injured people due to all the accidents that happened at the same time. All the hospital equipment is shut down, and cell phones are not working either. Jill tries to treat her own wound because there are no nurses available. Suddenly, she hears a woman screaming from the intensive care unit. Her son had been in a long coma and has just woken up. They return to the grandmother's house and tell her that the car sank. They sit together by candlelight because there is no electricity. Jill goes to sleep to prepare for work, but she can't fall asleep. She goes to the living room, looks at a photo of her deceased husband, and notices that Doris can't sleep either. Jill asks her if she has anything that could help her sleep. Doris tells her she stopped taking those kinds of pills a long time ago, but she will go to work and stop by a pharmacy to get something that can help Jill sleep. Jill checks on Matilda and finds her asleep, but Noah is still awake. Jill rides her bike to work and finds young people awake, partying in the street. Greg asks her for more medication and offers to pay double, and she agrees. The army arrives at Jill's workplace in vehicles that are still functioning. They see her carrying a bag of medicine, and she tells them she is a military nurse. A psychiatrist named Dr. Murphy steps in and tells them she knows Jill well. Murphy explains that they are facing a serious problem. The entire world has completely lost power. Dr. Brian is with them and brings printed reports. The army asks Dr. Murphy to go with them to a center they have established. Murphy asks Jill for help. Jill wants to understand what's happening, but the army insists they must move quickly. Jill agrees to help Murphy. Murphy gives Brian the address of the center and asks him to go pick up Jill's children and bring them there. Before leaving, Brian warns Jill that she doesn't understand how dangerous the situation is. Jill asks how a psychiatrist could possibly restore power. Brian explains that what's happening has nothing to do with electricity. It's about people losing the ability to sleep. After 48 hours without sleep, a person can no longer think clearly. After 96 hours, hallucinations begin, motor functions fail, and eventually the person dies from sleep deprivation. Jill tells him she saw her daughter sleeping normally. Brian says there is no such thing as unconsciousness anymore, either a person is alive or dead. Jill panics and rushes on her bike to check on Matilda. When she gets home, Matilda is not in her bed. Jill asks Noah, and he tells her that Matilda went with their grandmother to church. At the church, the priest says people now need a miracle, and that Matilda will be the only source of inspiration and hope for many. That proof still exists that people can sleep again. Jill packs a bag with food and tells Noah they need to escape, find any working vehicle like the army's, take Matilda from the church, and flee to any safe place. Brian arrives at the house and tells Jill that her daughter must go to Dr. Murphy so they can study her condition at the army base and find out why she can sleep. He says he knows the way to the center. Jill refuses completely and insists she will not give her daughter to anyone. They go out into the street and find people attacking a pharmacy, smashing it in hopes of stealing sleeping pills. On their way, they see the police officer who saved Matilda lying dead in the street. They reach the church and find Matilda and her grandmother surrounded by people. The crowd tells the priest that Matilda must be sacrificed so God will be pleased and allow them to sleep again, because their prayers are no longer working. Brian tells them Matilda is special, but she can't save anyone, and that everyone will die if the problem isn't solved. He insists they gather scientists and doctors immediately to fix the crisis and tries to take Matilda. The priest refuses, saying she will not be a test subject. The crowd attacks Brian, and he threatens to bring the army and take her by force. A police officer inside the church pulls out his gun and shoots Brian to stop Matilda from leaving. Panic erupts. The grandmother and Matilda escape through the back door of the church, but the officer catches the grandmother and demands to know where Matilda is and why they want to kill her. The grandmother signals with her eyes to Jill that her daughter is on the second floor. Jill reaches Matilda and escapes the church with Noah, who had taken the address of the military base from Brian's pocket. They hear gunshots inside the church and run. Matilda is too weak to run, so Jill carries her on her back. Noah tells Jill they must take Matilda to the army base. Maybe they can find a cure. If they run away, they might all die within days, and Matilda would be left alone without protection. That's why he took the address from Brian's pocket after he died. Jill agrees with her son and enters the car repair shop where she previously met Greg. She sees two men working inside and hides from them, then notices Greg lying dead on the ground. She overhears the men saying that only old cars, the ones that didn't have batteries at the moment the power went out worldwide, are still working. They manage to start two cars, and one of them tells the other to bring the key for the second car. Jill takes advantage of the moment and steals the key. The man looks for it but can't find it, so he drives off in one car, while Jill takes the second car and goes back to her children. They set off on the road together. As night falls, Matilda is asleep in the car. Jill comes across a crash on the road involving the shop owners. There is a large amount of bullet casings scattered on the ground. She gets out and finds them dead, takes the gun they were carrying, and continues driving. They stop at a library to look for a map to guide their route. Jill takes Matilda with her and tells her that from now on she must learn, try to read in any library she finds, and rely on herself in case they die or leave her alone someday. Matilda starts crying. Jill then tries to teach her how to shoot a gun in case she ever needs to kill an animal to survive, explaining that the gun isn't only made for killing people. Matilda refuses out of fear and runs back to the car. Noah comes out and tells Jill that she almost killed him when she fired the gun. Noah manages to find the map showing the location of the military base, and they discover it is 240 miles away. Matilda is asleep in the car with the doors left open. Jill looks out the library window and notices a nearby prison where all the inmates have escaped. She grabs the gun and runs toward her daughter, but one of the escaped prisoners has stolen the car without realizing a child is sleeping inside. Jill and Noah chase after the car until they are surrounded in the middle of the street by a group of inmates. One of them tells Jill to hand over what she has and he'll let her go. Terrified, she fires a shot into the ground, but it turns out to be the last bullet in the gun. Before the prisoners attack, the inmate who stole the car returns and tells her to get in, explaining that Matilda told him her mother was with her. Jill learns that his name is Dodge. He explains that he was imprisoned until the guards opened the prison and let everyone escape, and that he later found Jill's car and stole it. While driving, they come across a crashed airplane in the middle of the road. Jill drops the gun without noticing, and Dodge picks it up and threatens them. Jill tells him there's no ammo left. Dodge takes the car keys and orders them to get out and find fuel. Jill and Matilda collect fuel from a nearby tanker truck next to the plane. Dodge finds clothes inside the plane, gathers them, and changes out of his prison uniform. He tells them he has nowhere to go and decides to stay with them, hoping he can help them reach their destination. Jill tries to teach Matilda how to drive, but they soon reach a dead end surrounded by people hanging upside down from their legs. Suddenly, attackers rush them, smashing the car and trying to kill them. Jill speeds away with Dodge's help and manages to escape. She then sees lights in the distance and realizes it's the military base. She says they can't stay on the main road and that they'll continue on foot. Jill tells Dodge that he's helped them enough and that he can take the car and continue on his own. She leaves him behind and tells her children that she must enter the base first to make sure it's safe, especially for Matilda, and then she'll come back for them. Jill enters the base through the forest and finds water, washing her face to stay alert. She overhears two soldiers exchanging the password to enter the base, since they've started forgetting things due to lack of sleep. She writes the password down from memory, puts on a white lab coat she finds to pose as a doctor, and manages to reach the room of the woman who can still sleep. Jill pretends to take a blood sample and tells the woman she will help her escape in exchange for raising her 10-year-old daughter. Dr. Murphy sees her and asks what she's doing there. Jill tells her she came to help, just like she offered 6 days earlier. Murphy tells Jill that there is still no cure for sleep deprivation and that no one is going to survive. Jill leaves the base devastated, only to see Dodge arriving with her children in the car. They are all captured. Matilda tells them that she can sleep. They discover the military is conducting experiments on a monkey in an attempt to find a solution to the sleep crisis, since animals were able to sleep after the event, except for primates. Murphy begins to collapse from exhaustion, and they administer anesthetic gas to Matilda. She falls asleep right in front of them. Murphy questions Jill, trying to learn how her daughter can sleep, but Jill refuses to answer. Murphy continues her research on Matilda and the other woman, but the woman's breathing stops and she dies, leaving Matilda as the only remaining subject. Hallucinations begin to spread throughout the base. Jill imagines Noah trying to kill her, while one soldier imagines a bomb in front of him and starts firing wildly. The soldiers lose control and begin killing each other. A female soldier enters Jill's room, shoots at her, then kills herself, but the bullet misses Jill. Jill manages to escape and runs to Matilda, where she finds Murphy still trying to understand the cause of her sleep. Murphy orders her assistant to inject Matilda with something to wake her up more, but he mistakenly injects her with air, killing her. Jill grabs Matilda and searches for Noah. She finds him holding an electrical wire, cutting it with a knife and suffocating himself. She runs to get a defibrillator to revive him, but she uses it incorrectly while still touching Noah, causing both Jill and Matilda to be electrocuted. They fall to the ground. Morning comes, and everyone in the base is dead. Jill is lying on top of Noah, who is still breathing. Noah wakes up and says he was dreaming. Jill has now reached the final stage of sleep deprivation. Matilda goes to get a bed to move her mother, and she notices a police badge on the ground. Jill remembers that she died when she drowned in the earlier accident, and that the police officer saved her, just like they saved Noah after his breathing stopped. Noah realizes the solution: a person has to die and then come back to life. They take their mother to the nearest body of water, submerge her with their hands until her breathing stops, and she dies in front of them. Then they pull her out, force the water out of her lungs, and she comes back to life. Jill finally wakes up. This turns out to be the only way for a person to return to normal, and be able to sleep again. And that's where the film ends. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.